everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Longbox Guys. With me, as always, are some of my very best friends since there's a very little kid. Josh, how you doing, and what are you drinking?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm having a nice IPA from Vitamin C Brewing from Braintree, Massachusetts.
Braintree, Massachusetts. Awesome. Tommy, how you doing, and what are you drinking?
I'm doing okay. I am drinking some Spice Tree Scotch by Compass Box, and it is delicious.
Sounds
In fact,
good,
I'm going to pour
yeah.
myself some more.
Sound nice.
Yeah.
Oh, it's delicious.
Mikey, how you doing, and what are you drinking?
I'm doing well. I'm drinking a Hero Pilsner from Thimble Island Brewery in Connecticut. What are you doing? What are you drinking? How are you doing?
I'm doing great. At the moment, I'm drinking a Scotch. I'm going to switch over to tequila later because I have to do a fasting blood work test tomorrow, and I don't want to have diabetes, so I'm going to drink a bunch of tequila before I go to bed because that helps level out the sugars. That's right. I'm not fat. I'm crafty. I'm the MacGyver of fat guys. That's a hey.
Anything I can do to fool those medical experts?
She's my doctor.
Right.
She's got to be smarter than me. Speaking of smarter than all of us, we lost a titan of the comic book industry this week. We lost Neil Adams. Neil Adams, one of the greatest people ever to be in comics, really. We've met him on a couple of occasions. We're going to tell you a couple of snobby stories about him. We're going to tell you a couple of our favorite things about him. And we're going to tell you a little bit about the history of Neil Adams, how he got into comics, what his first comics were, who his first wife was, what his hometown was. And I'm saying all this because LT has to give the history, and I know he didn't do dick.
Neil Adams, he got into comics in like 1967. He's been in the industry forever. He is the one that was responsible for getting artists back their artwork after the comics published it. Before that, the comic book companies would just put it in a drawer, and then when the drawer was full, they would empty the drawer and throw it out. That's what comic book companies did, historically. And Neil Adams was the one that was responsible for getting the artist back the artwork when the comic book companies had published it, so that they would have basically another income stream. He was an artist rights guy from the 70s, but he started in the comic book industry in like 1967 or so.
He's responsible
I'm
for.
sure Wikipedia will have more information about this in a minute.
So he's responsible. He was such a pioneer, and his art style was emulated by so many people, like Frank Miller and Walt Simonson. They all looked up and considered Neil Adams their mentor as far as drawing comics. Bill Sienkiewicz, the list goes on and on. On Twitter, after the news was announced of Neil Adams passing away, all the comic book writers and artists were out there saying, and Neil Adams was one of the best artists of all time. And if you look at any of his iconic artwork, you'd have to agree. He was able to capture the motion and action of a comic with still frames. And his covers are just classic. The Superman breaking the kryptonite chain was Neil Adams. Songbirds Don't Fly, with Speedy shooting heroin on the cover of Green Lantern, Green Arrow, that was Neil Adams. Neil Adams did so much great artwork, but the work he did for the comic book industry is what made him the titan that he was. It wasn't necessarily his artwork, which was the basis for everything, but it's the fact that he petitioned for artists to have their artwork back. Not only that, he took up the cause of. Go ahead, Tom.
You can finish that thought if you like, but I was going to say that is one of the great things he is thought of as taking up the cause for artist rights. But to me, he will always be the social justice guy. Talk about a guy who pioneered talking about social justice in comic books. He definitely wasn't the first, but he was one of the best, in my opinion. The iconic thing where an African-American comes up to Green Lantern and says, "You've done things for the Purple Man and the Orange Man, but please tell me, what have you done for the black man? And he said, I can't answer that. That's a powerful, powerful statement in a comic book. And his Green Arrow, Green Lantern run was full of social justice issues. And to me, that's what I always remember Neil Adams as. And secondly, as a great, great pioneer when it came to artist rights and just redoing the entire comic book industry.
And he also, not only, you know, did he get artists back their artwork, but he also fought for creator-owned rights. So, you know, prior to this, if a comic book artist or writer created a character, the comic book company would get the rights to the character. And typically the artist would get nothing. They would just get paid for the book. Whereas Neil Adams made it possible for the person who created the character to get royalties for that character. And that was a big deal. That allowed some of these creators to actually be able to have a style of living other than just barely eking out a living. And it was, you know, it was a very important thing. He fought for all of that. He also, you know, for a while, him and Dick Giorgiano had continuity comics in the 80s where they were supporting a bunch of different artists in their own studio space, allowing people to do kind of what they wanted in continuity comics for a while. And that ran for like 8 or 9 years in that studio space. So they did he did a lot of really good things for the comic industry.
Yeah, when you talk about Neil Adams, and he started a graphic design company, and so he found that working your ass off for making comic books didn't pay as well as just doing advertising artwork. And so what he would do is he would supplement the other artists by giving them jobs in the industry for advertising. And Neil Adams actually left the comic book industry for a while just to run his own business doing the graphic design for different advertising. And he made a lot more money than he ever did in the comic book industry because of the way comic book rights and distributions just are. He was the champion for Siegel and Schuster when they created Superman, and basically the whole superhero genre was built upon Superman's shoulders. And he was the best-selling comic book in the 1940s and going into the 50s. Siegel and Schuster didn't own the rights to Superman, and they didn't have a contract with DC, but they were making really good money because Superman was selling so well. However, when new editors came in and they sold DC Comics, which was then National Comics, got sold, they kicked Siegel and Schuster out and brought in cheaper writers and artists. And so the creators of Superman had nothing to fall back on. And eventually, I can't remember if it was Siegel or Schuster. There's an interview with one of them. They were so happy when the Christopher Reeve Superman movie came out that they would stand outside the movie theater to watch people coming out to see their reactions. And he'd ask them how they enjoyed the movie. Now, he didn't actually get to see the movie because he couldn't afford a fucking ticket to the movie. And so Neil Adams told us that story at one of the many cons that we've seen him at. And he said, I thought it was bullshit. And so he worked to get Siegel and Schuster a stipend.
Yeah.
A monthly stipend till the
Modest.
end of their lives from DC Comics because of all the money that DC was making off of their creation.
So for me, I didn't read a lot of Neil Adams comics. I wasn't a DC guy, and I know he crossed back and forth a bit. For me, he was like you said, Mike. He was a con presence, and we saw him at a lot of cons. And not only did we see him at a lot of cons, he was just at a lot of cons. That guy was a road warrior for conventions. He liked being in front of the people he liked meeting people. First of all, and just I'm going to take a walk back just a little bit for those who don't know. 3 days ago on April 29th, Neil Adams passed away at the age of 80. So that's why we're talking about him in the past tense, but it's just 3 days before the recording of this. So he is really, for me, he's that con presence. You've never seen a single table for a Neil Adams booth. You've never not seen a crowd in front of a Neil Adams booth. And if you've been in front or near a Neil Adams booth, you have definitely heard Neil Adams stories, right? He engaged people, and sometimes not always in the best way, but he always engaged.
We also want to mention that the #1 Neil Adams fan also sadly passed away this week, which was also Neil Adams.
Also Neil Adams.
We've made that joke
15 minutes he spent 15 minutes at a con talking about taking a shit on an airplane.
The poop story. He never said shit. He always said poop.
That's true, because he was a classy dude.
He was a classy dude. He told the poop story on the plane, and it went on forever. And it was worth every second of it.
Yeah. He was a big guy. With big personality. He was always there at the cons. It was unbelievable. Like, I can't imagine being in my late 70s and just being that much of a road warrior out every time. I mean, he's every week.
Always animated.
Yeah, I would see little cons like in the middle of nowhere. Like there was a con like in like north central Massachusetts that was like at a high school, and it was like featuring Neil Adams. I'm like, what are you talking about?
His son often too, correct?
His son and his wife.
Joel.
Yeah. So I always remember him as a road warrior.
What Josh said about you would never see one table, that's because Neil Adams couldn't have one table. He usually had 3. He usually had a corner table and 2 tables that came around, just displaying all of his magnificent covers and artwork, and he would sign them, and he was a very generous guy. Speaking of his generosity, Mike, tell him the story.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to go over. Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Is there a glare? Okay, that Batman black and white cover. We have a story about that. So Tom and I are walking past Neil Adams' table, and Tom says, "Hey, Mr. Adams, we are doing a panel discussion on civil rights and social justice today at the con, and it would mean a lot to us if you could come to our panel and speak about that." And then a 15-minute doctoral thesis was conducted where he talked to us about what social justice really was. And the whole Batman black and white, he picked up that comic book and he was like, "You want to talk about social justice? Read this," and handed it to Tom. And Tom was like, "Well, okay." What he really meant, Neil Adams meant, read this right now, open up the fucking comic and read it. But Tom just was holding it like that because there was a sign that said it was $1,000.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm holding a $1,000 comic book. I'm not opening this, Mr. Adams.
He's afraid to touch it. He's just holding it by the sides because he don't want to get any fingerprints on it, because Neil Adams it's an original Neil Adams Batman drawing on it. And it's a Neil Adams comic. And Neil Adams is like, "Give me that." And he starts to read the comic to us as if we were children.
It was Neil Adams story time.
Yeah. And the thesis of it was, the world doesn't need Batman, it needs Bruce Wayne.
Right, because Bruce Wayne is more effective with his money than Batman is spending it on his toys. And at the end of it, he's like, "Here, this is for you. Keep up the good work." And that is why I currently have it, because Tom was like, "You need to take care of this, Michael."
I'm like, I am gonna read this every night before bed and fall asleep with it on my face and wreck this immediately.
Yep.
I am not good with keeping comic books neat. I have comic books, they're in bags, they're boarded, but I constantly pull them up and read them, and stick them back in the wrong bags upside down, or just leave them in piles for a while, then back. I'm so glad Mike has it, because I would have wrecked it by now. So that is our tontine at the moment.
He would have drooled on it, then his dog would have drooled on it, then his other dog would have ripped it apart.
It's
No,
like in
and we
Mystery
would've been-
Men when Captain
We would have
Amazing is
talked
like,
about that comic in the past tense, like we're talking about Neil Adams.
Captain Amazing's like, keep up the good work. And I'm like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Keep up the good work, he said. Keep it up.
Good work, sir.
Keep it up. I was so moved. I was crying. I was trying to hold it together. I couldn't. It was a very moving moment for me.
Yeah, he was great. He told
And let's not. We're glossing with the fact he gave us $1,000 comic book just because he liked that we were talking about social justice in comic books.
yeah, he thought it was a very important issue. He thought comic books teach kids the moral values of right and wrong, and therefore they're an amazing part of the American society. Speaking of, that, we should talk about Hard Charging Heroes, the Green Lantern, Green Arrow series. Although, if you're going to talk about Neil Adams, you got to talk about he revolutionized with Marv Wolfman, Batman. They created Ra's al Ghul, Man-Bat, Talia.
If you're going to talk about Batman, you should start at the beginning. I mean, he took over Batman by doing it in the most obtuse way. He was like, "Oh, why don't you let me draw the Brave and the Bold?" Because he knew he couldn't get the big Batman story in the beginning. He had to prove himself as a Batman artist. So he was like, "Give me the Brave and the Bold." And this was at the time when Batman 66 was out, and Batman wasn't a serious character yet. And he took Batman Brave and the Bold, and he did the flowing robes. He did it at night, and he made Batman what we all know Batman to be now. Took it from the campy character of Batman 66 and brought it into the Dark Knight. Really.
He also created the iconic Van Dyke look of Green Arrow.
He also put muscles underneath costumes.
I take umbrage with you calling Batman's cape a robe.
I'm sorry, but he made it flowing. He made it flow and.
Yeah, but it's not a robe. He's not out there. Robe.
Yeah,
he didn't steal from the Hilton.
When he wakes up in the morning, he puts on the cape and cowl,
Yeah.
walks around the Batcave. It's cold in there.
It's cold now.
All right, I just couldn't get past robe. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I used the wrong the word that you took offense to. I'm just saying that he took the flagship character and returned it to its dark roots.
He did that absolutely.
And recaptured it from the campiness of the 60s.
He also
brought it back to the 40s dark character.
I think, if correct me if I'm wrong, but he really brought back the detective part of it to me.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Because that's where
I mean, he was always the detective, but these were good detective stories.
Right, but he was the artist for that.
Yeah, but you're right. He was the artist for that. But that's when the detective part of it came through to me.
But all of his covers, if you go back and look at his Batman and Detective Comics covers, are freaking amazing.
He did the Beatles one, right?
I don't know if he did the Beatles one.
I'm going to look that up because I think that is hilarious. One of these Beatles is dead. We just don't know which one. It looks like his.
If you were used to the Batman TV show and you went into the comic book store when you were looking for comics, the Neil Adams covers just drew you in because it was a dark, brooding, noirish character rather than the camp. He was responsible for the Joker being the sociopath that we know now. It was him and Denny O'Neil writing Batman, where they were like, we're going to take Joker and he's still a clown, but we're going to make him a sociopath clown. So, if you see the Joker fish, is Neil Adams. Then when Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, both very liberal, they wanted to talk about the social issues that were facing, the United States in the 1960s. They didn't have a vehicle for doing that until they were offered the Green Lantern series, because Green Lantern was not a good comic. Nobody was buying Green Lantern, so they were like, you can take it over. You can do whatever you want with it, because it's not like you're going to tank the ratings, the sales on this comic. It sucks. We're probably going to cancel it anyways. So they did the hard charging heroes, where they took on the social issues. Green Lantern playing the role of the conservative, Green Arrow playing the role of the liberal in the pairing. So the hard charging heroes is a seminal work of comic bookdom. You should also consider looking at Snowbirds Don't Fly. And the reason we say that is because that was one of the first, in fact, the first DC comic that did not have the Comic Code of Authority on it. It was Spider-Man had an issue where they dealt with drugs, and then this issue where the U.S. government actually asked them to talk about drug use, but because there was drug use, they couldn't get it past the censors of the Comic Book Code Authority. So they were like, "All right, we're just not going to have the that label on it." So that no, go ahead.
I think one of the great things about the hard charging heroes is, yeah, you're right. They asked for the reins of a book that they knew was teetering on the brink of obscurity, right? That was going to go away. So they could take that and do what they wanted to do with it. And the great thing about it is they turned that series around with a serious issue. And I think that was sort of the beginning of the demographic change of how they thought about selling comic books too. So it's sort of the very early thing where a lot of people, especially like 40s, 50s, even though a lot of adults were probably reading comics, a lot of it was probably thought of as sales of kids buying stuff off spinner racks. And that really sort of turned the industry to say, maybe we can do more serious books, and they can turn series around and make sales because adults are willing to pay for this medium. And I mean, I'm sure some marketing people thought about that beforehand, but I think that was sort of one of the things where people were like, let's do more of this. And I think the sort of, I mean, you can see from the Frank Miller sort of, burgeoning out of that sort of idea, and those more serious books just sort of coming to light and pushing their way into the industry.
Yeah, and the comic books Code of Authority didn't last much longer after that.
No, it lasted until the 90s.
Yeah, but it wasn't the force it was. How's that?
Yeah, they started relaxing the code. And if you want the most classic Neil Adams cover, it's a tough call, but I'm going to go with Superman versus Muhammad Ali.
Oh, clap, clap, clap.
I mean,
clap.
that's a good one.
If you look at that, Neil Adams just decided, I'm going to take all these real people and put them in the crowd watching Superman versus Muhammad Ali. And his drawing is so great that it almost looks like a photograph of these people. He captures everybody.
So much work into that. You can name like 40 people. Like I'm pretty sure Red Fox is in there. Like there's so many people in the background, in the crowd, just watching and cheering. Yeah, I can't name them all off the top of my head, but there's so many good people in there. Josh, you got it over your shoulder right now.
Yeah.
And it's a great one.
Part of it, yeah.
Is that his most iconic cover, though? I mean, Snowbirds jumps right to mind, of course, because that's a big one. The Sergeant Rock Batman one comes to mind to me just because I loved it so much. It's really beautiful. How about you, Tommy?
Well, I was going to say, we've talked a lot about some of the other things that Neil Adams has done, but he's also done a bunch of, things that you don't really know him for outside of comics. He did some work for some Holocaust-related things as well. He did some motion comics for about the Holocaust series with Disney called what is it? American Voices Against the Holocaust. They Spoke Out, where it was a series of kind of motion comics that were all about the Holocaust and about Jews being tormented by the Nazis, and it was like an educational series that Disney helped put out back in like 2010. That he kind of spearheaded. He also did some work on a graphic documentary about Dina Bobbitt and her work in the Holocaust. She was, forced to work as an illustrator for Joseph Mengele, documenting his theories about Romani racial inferiority against her will. And so he did some work about that. So he did things even outside of comic bookdom that were also about social injustice.
I thought you said Lorena Bobbitt.
No.
It's a very different person. And Disney does not have the best record when it comes to Jewish rights. So I'm glad they turned it around there. I thought you were going to talk about something totally different that they got him to do. I'm like, geez.
And also, he, getting back to Green Arrow, Green Lantern, he was also the one of the impetus for them changing the Green Lantern to John Stewart and having an African American Green Lantern.
It's a good point.
They wanted to, when he was like, let's change to a different Green Lantern, and they were like, oh, sure, we can pick another American. And he's like, why don't we choose somebody from a different ethnic background? And they were like, oh, okay. And they wanted to choose an Asian, and he was like, you already have done some bad things to Asians in recent history with this book. Why don't we choose an African American? And they wanted to, DC wanted to name that character something ridiculous, and he's like, no, let's just give him a normal name like John Stewart. And so he helped create that whole Green Lantern, which is now a Green Lantern of a generation that people know.
True, and John Stewart was the first black superhero in DC Comics. Don't doubt me, Tom. Don't you fucking doubt me.
A fellow by the name of Tyrock.
I was going to say, what about Tyrock?
Nope, John Stewart predates Tyrock.
John Stewart predates Tyrock?
Yeah. Tyrock was the 22nd century.
Oh, you're going to put him in the 22nd century, are you? Are you now?
No, publishing
how
history.
It is now.
Publishing history.
You're certain?
I am positive. I am willing to bet LT's life on this. Josh, look it up.
I kind of think you're wrong on this one.
All right. It's the year of redemption.
Neil Adams, has done everything in the industry. He has written, he has drawn, he has won all the awards.
Yeah, and if you are interested in reading any of Neil Adams' comics that he wrote, I highly recommend you enjoy the artwork of Neil Adams, because he is not a good writer.
He's a great storyteller.
Batman Black and White.
He was a great storyteller, but not so much with the writing. I read The Dead Man that he did in 2018.
Yeah.
And Dead Man was again one of his other iconic characters, I think. When I think of Neil Adams, I think of Dead Man, because he was the artist for the Dead Man series.
It was one of his first works, was Dead Man.
John Stewart's first appearance, Green Lantern 87, December of 1971. Tyrock, Superboy 216, April 1976. 5 years.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to just spike this cat because I feel so happy.
I want to see you spike that cat. Spike that cat.
Spike that cat. And for me, I will say I'm gonna go. Since I'm a Marvel guy, I'm gonna take my favorite Marvel cover by him was actually X-Men 50. I'm gonna say 8, 7.
Is that the
It's
one with Havoc?
Havoc's.
4.
Yeah, it's Havoc's first appearance.
Yeah, as soon as you said X-Men and Neil Adams, I thought, oh, it's got to be the fucking Havoc cover.
Yeah, it's Havoc's first appearance. It's a good cover.
Good cover.
It's a good cover.
Yeah.
All around hilarious guy. If you went to any of his panels, he wasn't a good panelist because he kind of dominated, and he should have dominated. He was too big to be on a panel. He should have been the panel wherever he was. But he was engaging in the stories, funny, articulate, smart, nice, friendly, giving. This guy was everything that's good about comic books, really.
Yeah, classy dude.
Yeah.
He will be missed.
And also always pointing to other artists. Never, I mean, he loved himself too.
Till Neil Adams.
Drink. To Neil Adams. Drink.
Neil Adams.
Neil.
LT, you're just trying to get us to change your name, but it's still unicorn.
Neil.
Okay, so it is 58 for that, but in my search for that, I found Detective Comics number 52, where the inmates in a prison are hanging Batman by his cape. Man, that's a good cover.
Did you
He's
say
got a lot of
52?
What's that?
That's got to be like 252.
Oh no, sorry. It's Detective Comics 421.
Yeah.
There's a ton of good ones.
Yeah.
There's a great one of Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and it's about coal miners' rights. And it's Green Arrow taking a shot at Green Lantern because he's crossing the picket line. And it's just about, who has more rights, people picketing and trying to stop work at a site, or a company trying to keep business going. I mean, that's such a nuanced, difficult question, and they just took it out of this comic book. It was great. And there were also a lot of things that were a little controversial at the time. I remember there was one where Black Canary was pretty much crucified in one of those front panels, and it was all about whether or not they could co-opt some of the racial stereotypes that they had been using in the past. And Black Canary actually stopped being a superhero for a few years because she said, I have to stop and think about, if what we're doing is actually right. And, she took a little break from comics. And all of that happened because Neil Adams and the writing team that he was working with were making these great comics that were interested in looking at, what was wrong and what was right with America. The entire series, Searching for America, is just nothing but social justice issues, and it's terrific.
Yeah, I mean, also Batman 251 is a great cover with the Joker holding a giant playing card with Batman on it. It's a great Neil Adams cover.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of Neil Adams prints. Yeah, obviously Green Lantern, Green Arrow, the Justice League. In fact, I bought Justice League cover from him, and then at the next con I bought the exact same one. So I have two that are signed to Michael, and I have one in my office at work, and then I have one in my collection here at the house because I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. I like this so much I bought it twice.
Josh, you did something like that before too with one of your pencil guys.
Yeah, one of the artists I really like. He's an amazing pencil sketch artist, and I have this Darth Vader by him, and I was probably, it was past the pandemic, so he came out on the other side in the con I went to, and I was like, I saw this Darth Vader print, and I was like, man, this is amazing. Like, oh man, I think so. I had like cash in hand. I was about to like buy it again. And I was like, wait a minute, were you at the Game of Thrones convention? And the guy's like, yeah. I'm like, fuck, I already own this. I was gonna buy it again. I like it so much. He really does
Yep.
a good job.
Oh, any last words on Neil Adams?
Let me say one other thing about Neil Adams. Whenever I talked to him, he was, and without tearing up, he would always talk about other artists first. Like he loved himself. He absolutely did. But he was very generous when it came to talking about other artists. Like he'd like, oh, you like this? You're going to like this guy's stuff too. And, oh, this guy down the way, you're going to like his stuff too. He was generous in that way. He did love his stuff. But he was a very generous guy too.
And very loving with his wife also.
Oh, and his son too. His son went with him everywhere. Joel.
Yep. I met Neil Adams. He was doing a signing at my local comic book store when I was in New Orleans, and his wife was there. And so Neil was being Neil, signing, talking to everybody. And I had a lovely conversation with his wife for probably about a half hour. We just sat there and chatted, and I was making recommendations of where they should go, etc. So she was very lovely. I feel bad for her and surviving. But yeah.
I think we kind of know some of the wives better, like Tony Isabella's long-suffering wife Barb. We've talked to Barb for hours.
Such a sweetheart.
Barb is awesome.
Sweetheart.
We love Tony, of course, too, but Barb is awesome and hilarious. Last words there, Tommy?
I mean, yeah, Neil Adams will be missed. He's a great guy. It certainly was a force for good in comics.
Josh, sweet Josh, any last words?
Just a light gone out at every con for me.
Yeah.
Just seems like there should be a dark corner no one should be able to have a booth there. And they should just have a white placard that says Neil Adams at every fucking con from now on.
Down in Memphis, we have a table in the corner for fallen soldiers, and it's always got 4 beers on it, and it's for that. And we should have that for the con for this year. That would be actually a tremendous honor for him. And one of the very few guys in comic books that I know of where you can't say a bad word about. Not to my knowledge. It might come up later. You never know. But right now, I'm going to say I've never heard anyone say a bad word about Neil Adams. That's
probably some editors.
Couple editors.
A couple editors.
Obviously, some publishers. Like, the artist, what?
Certainly some DC lawyers. Yeah, but yeah.
You want us to give this stuff back? I was going to throw it away. I don't have envelopes. Envelopes.
These are like 11 by 17. Where are we going to find envelopes that big?
They don't make envelopes that big.
They don't make envelopes that big.
Mikey, what do you have at the front of the long box, sir?
At the front of the long box, I have Wonder Woman Historia of the Amazons. It is one of the Black Label comics that DC puts out, which means it is the magazine style. It is by Kelly Sue DeConnick and Phil Jimenez, along with a bunch of different artists. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see just a sample of the breathtaking artwork. This is told not as a narrative storyline so much as an illustrated history. If you love mythology, this is the book for you. They make the gods look godly in it rather than just larger than life humans. They make them otherworldly, and the story is very interesting. So I highly recommend it, which for those playing at home, that means you get a drink. Oh, and for people who are watching or listening to this podcast and didn't see the photos that I put up on our YouTube channel, we have a YouTube channel. Just search for the Longbox guys and you'll find us. For those of you listening on YouTube and are like, what's a podcast? Read a book. No, don't read a book. Listen to our podcast, please. And if you want a bonus podcast from us, you can go over to patreon.com/thelongbox guys. And for a mere $1 a month, you get access to our Patreon only podcast that we do almost every week called The Geek Leak, where we talk about all the other geeky stuff besides comic books that we're doing. And all the money that we make does not go to us. It goes to the Elizabeth Peabody House, where, Tom, how many people do you guys feed?
We feed about 90 people every single week lately. The numbers keep
90
rising.
families.
90 families. Thank you very much, Tommy, for pointing that out, because you are right. It's 90 families. We provide as much as we can. Everything's getting a little bit stressed. The system is a little bit stressed at the moment. So everything, guys, that we add, everything that can add helps out a little bit. A little bit. Tommy, what do you have at the back of the long box?
I've got Batman 251 by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, with cover assistance by Dick Giorgiano. This is a great old Batman story where Batman is hunting down the Joker. The Joker has just escaped from prison, and Batman is convinced that the Joker is trying to hunt down all of his old gang and kill them because he believes that the Joker is convinced that one of his old gang has ratted him out, and that's how he got sent to prison in the first place. And so Batman is trying to beat the Joker to all of his old gang and trying to get them into protective custody before he can kill them. And he is failing miserably. And is a great story of Batman failing miserably while trying to protect the not so innocent. And it's great.
That sounds like a good one, actually. I might pick that one up.
It is.
So I read that comic book at a barber shop on Main Street in Palmer.
That's great. Well,
And what'd you think, Mikey?
Don the barber. He was
Don the barber. Yes, Don the barber.
He was usually a little tipsy, but he would accept payment on Friday. So every kid would go there. The dad would come in on Friday and settle up with Don. And he always had a stack of comic books. So I remember reading that issue at the barber shop because I loved going to get my haircut because I got to peruse all his comic books.
Yeah, I remember Don the barber. That was great. Great memory. Not too far from the Swedish bakery. But that's a tangent. We gotta admit that. And that's usually Josh's purview. Josh, what do you got for a tangent for us today?
So I had a tangent, and then Mike totally just threw my tangent into my tangent. So I'm gonna give my story first. I usually, shop it out first, but I'm just gonna give you mine right away. So the worst haircut I ever got. I just get to college. It's my first time really away from home for any length of time. I go down to downtown Bridgewater, walk down the street, I see a barber shop, and I'm like, sure, why not? I go in, sit down, guy says, oh yeah, the owner's taking walk-ins. And there's something about the look on the kid's face who tells me that tells me I'm in the wrong place, but I don't listen to my instincts. And I sit down anyway. And that kid leaves. The owner comes in and puts the Vicky around me, gets me ready. And then for a moment I think to myself, is that the smell of alcohol that cleans the combs? Or is this guy that It's the first time in my life I ever went home and I was just shaving my head bald. That guy was so drunk when he cut my hair. I look like I had gotten fucked 3 ways by a razor blade. It was horrible. So either worst haircut ever or just worst personal service of whatever you guys got going on. I don't want to dig too deep there.
Well, I got some massage ones I could go through.
Todd,
finish. Mike, I bet I know both of our worst haircut stories.
Okay, go for it.
Are you talking
Was
about,
it in a bay?
What?
Was it in a bay?
It was not.
Someone in the barracks? No, it wasn't a barracks haircut. Your worst haircut wasn't a barracks haircut?
No.
All right, my worst haircut ever was a barracks haircut where one guy had a pair of clippers. He's like, hey, yeah, I'll do it for $1. It was just mangled. It was a buzz cut, but it was like mangled, shabby. It was like getting a blowjob from someone with 3 teeth, but the teeth were really sharp. Like really sharp. Like
How sharp, Tom?
naturally sharp. Like Vorpal, like Jibber Jabber Jabberwocky, Vorpal blade sharp. Mikey, what was your worst then?
So I just want to back up. In the Army, at basic training, they make you go get a haircut.
Yeah.
And you have to give them your money for this haircut because you have to pay the barber. The guy next to me had alopecia. He had no hair whatsoever on his body.
And he still forked over the 6.
He had to pay $6 for him to sit down, the barber to wrap the thing around, to go to just. I don't even know what he did to his head. He just went, boop, okay, you're done.
Drill sergeant's got a kickback from that guy. You know that, right?
Yeah.
We all know that,
gotta
right?
be, yeah.
But my worst haircut, it was in Monterey, California. I was at a strip mall, and I always used to have McCoy give me my haircuts. He had the best price. He didn't charge you for it. He just wasn't gentle at all. But I was like, you know what? He only did high and tights. I didn't want a high and tight. I wanted just a short tapered cut. So I go to the strip mall. This little Asian woman asked me, what do I want? And I said, I want short tapered 1 inch. Make sure it goes over my ears. So she cuts a 1 inch streak over my fucking ears.
Nice.
In which McCoy had a fix for me.
Nice.
Nice.
What about you, Tommy?
It's a victim.
So,
except for you.
so I went down to Alabrandy's down on Holland Street in Somerville one day. And normally I did okay at Alabrandy's, but the old man was not cutting that day. He was in the next chair over, and I got some new person, and she was not very good. And she nicked my ear and also screwed up my hair. And the old man had to come over and fix it.
So his granddaughter was taken over eventually.
And I'm just saying it was not good. And he was like, here, I'm just gonna put some paper on your ear.
So during COVID, I went to a place in San Jose, Super Cuts or Great Cuts, whatever the fuck it was, and the woman nicked my ear with the razor. And you would have sworn that some biohazard had happened in that place. Because she was like, oh, fuck, I'm so sorry. Oh, my God. And then everybody, like, parted ways and gave me a bunch of space because I was now a biohazard. It was crazy.
Josh, do you remember the barbershop across the street from where we lived?
In San Francisco?
Yeah.
No?
So
there was a strip club across the street from where you live.
The Mitchell Brothers Strip Club. Right next to there was a little barbershop where these 2 very old Chinese fellas would work, and it was all gangbangers would go in there, and the gangbangers would get all these cuts, and Chinese opera was blaring, and the phone would ring constantly, and they would talk on the phone and write stuff down furiously, and then every once in a while someone would come in and go, "I'm going in the back, dog," and the Chinese guy would tap on the wall twice, the back wall would open, and they would go downstairs, and the wall shut. I loved going to that barbershop because I never knew what was going to happen there. It was mostly people getting like gang banger haircuts with like significant things shaved into their heads, and then me getting a high and tight. But every once in a while, "I'm going in the back, dog," would happen, and they would open the wall, and you don't remember that, Josh?
So I think the weird thing is, I don't ever remember getting a haircut in San Francisco.
Wow, that is weird.
Like I don't remember a barber shop. I'm usually like a barbershop guy, and I don't remember getting a haircut the entire 2 years you were in California.
I don't remember your hair getting long either.
Oh, my hair did get long. There's a picture of me behind Ben, and I look like I've got a stormtrooper head of hair, helmet. I don't remember getting a haircut in California.
I got one more quick haircut story. When I moved to Memphis, I went to this place that my boss told me I had to go to. He's like, just go there. They don't just go there. So I went there and I sat down, and the guy looked at me, looked me up and down, and goes, short. And I nodded, and that was the last word I said. I paid him my money, I left. That went on for 4 years. I would sit in that chair. He would look at me every 3 weeks and go, short, and I nod, and he cut my hair. I'm about to move out of town. I'm about to leave. I sit down for my last haircut. He goes, short, and I nod, and he starts cutting my hair, and he goes, how about those Memphis Grizzlies? I'm like, whoa, pal. What the fuck are you doing, man? I did not come here for a conversation. And the guy in the chair next to me fucking almost pissed his pants laughing. And he looks over and goes, he's trying something new. And it was one of the most hysterical moments of my life. This guy just, out of the blue, decided he's going to add one more line to his repertoire. And I was not having it. My wife has an idea for the perfect barbershop for her, in which you walk into a shop and there's hundreds of pictures of haircuts on the wall. You look at the barber for a second and then tap on the picture and then sit down and then Apple Pay on the way out. And that's it. Not a word needs to be said. That's my wife's dream fantasy of what a barbershop should be.
LT, when we went out for your wedding, we all went to the barbershop the day before and got haircuts and a nice shave, like a real shave. There's nothing better than a barber who knows how to do a real shave.
I won that in an auction this week.
You did?
Yeah, I get a real shave, and for the upgrade for another $20, they're going to do the dome. So I'm going to get the full real shave here, the full dome shave this week.
Yeah, my barber here in Connecticut, first time I went, I was like, hey, do you do shave? And he's like, yeah, I can do that. I'm never having him do that again.
Well, what did he use? Did he use a straight razor?
He did use a straight razor, and he did not do a good job.
Okay. I went to a barber here in town, and I said, they were doing my hair, like, shave? And I'm like, no, thanks. And they're like, shave. I'm like, no, I'm good. And they went, shave. I'm like, all right. It was just part of the deal. You just got shaved. So I did. It was nice.
When I had my wrist surgery, I was looking for a place that would do a shave because my face, after like a week, it just got to that point where it was so itchy.
Oh no, yeah, nice straight razor with the hot, hot
nice.
foam. That's nice. That's good
Well,
stuff.
my beard is mostly my wife's sex toy. Like, she likes a 3-day growth. That's what she likes. So, like, when you guys see me, I'm going to be clean shaven because I'm hopefully coming back just right time for it to be 3 days. So, yeah.
This has been barbershop talk.
Too much.
Barbershop talk.
All right, well, let's talk a little. Let's move on to
3-18, Tom?
Do I got a 3-18? 3-18. A straight razor shave, 3-18. I've only had it once. I'm going to give it an 18. It was nice.
I'm going to give it a 15 because it's hit or miss.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 16 because there are definitely some places you're like, you know what I want today? A nice straight hair shave, and you walk in and you're like, no, not here.
I went to one place, the guy pulled out a Bic. I'm like, fuck you and fuck your Bic. I'm not even kidding. It was a Bic.
Nope.
Yeah, that guy's a monster. He's not a barber.
Yeah.
They were gonna be eating you later as ground up beef. They didn't even fucking care.
Worst pies in London, the worst. Why are you singing that? Worst pies in London. Tommy, 3-18.
Yeah. 16.
16. Well, you had a Kurt wrist, so yeah, probably went up one. But I've only gotten one. It was really good, so I got to stick with that 18. And I'm really hoping on this one because like super high end place, like a yuppie place. I'm like, all right, it's gonna be. They have a barber shop. They do the full shave, and they have a juice bar, which is weird to me.
That is weird.
That is weird. I also went to one in San Francisco that was a barber shop and boxing gym.
Yeah.
Do you
Still
remember that
weird.
one, Tommy? Josh?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember
Oh,
that was kind of famous.
Yeah.
It was a barbershop boxing gym, and you'd go in, you'd watch the boxing match, and they'd give a shave, and it was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Plugs.
I'd like to thank Kirby Crackle for providing our geek rock music every week. You can check them out at kirbycracklemusic.com. And I'd also like to thank Seth and the boys over at who'snextgaming.com. You can check out their podcast too, although they're on a bit of a hiatus. Seth is moving his house, and so they're probably not going to be podcasting for a little bit. He's going to be rebroadcasting some older episodes, though.
He's got some great old episodes, mostly about sex robots, but terrific stuff. How about you, Tommy?
I'd like to thank Compass Box for producing this great Scotch spice tree. Compass Box spice tree Scotch. It's delicious.
All right, I'm gonna try
And
that.
also, I'd like to plug geekorthodox.com.
GeekOrthodox.com.
Hello, Tammy.
geekorthodox.com for very fine stained glass prints and Johnny Skywalker rocks glasses. geekorthodox.com for all your geeky needs. And also ianlean.com for all your t-shirt needs.
I would like to thank Hotbox Pizza over in Somerville, Massachusetts, who is once again participating in the Pizza Awareness Week, where they give pizza to different food banks. They didn't choose us this time, but they chose another food bank that's up the street from us, and they're going to give them 300 pies to feed their guys, which is terrific. So Hotbox Pizza in Somerville, Massachusetts. Terrible name, really good pizza.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Awesome Con, June 3rd to 5th. On the 4th at 7:45 p.m., the Longbox guys will be presenting one of our panels on horrible stereotypes. Yes.
Yes.
And we will be joined by Sasha Kaplan. It's looks to be a great con. We'll be down in Washington D.C. Should be a lot of fun. We've got a lot of stuff coming up, and also this summer, I have personally, I will be teaching a sword class at Gen Con out in Indianapolis. So if you want to get a
What's the name of
introductory
that?
Gen Con,
Yeah.
it's called. It's the name of it's Gen Con.
No, the dates. Sorry, I said the dates.
Oh, the dates. That's a good
It's
question.
a great
Gen
looking
Con.
question.
It's called Google. Look it up. It's sometimes in
Fine.
August. I don't know. It's a way. People have time. You got time.
I should also
Plenty of
mention that I'm hosting the archery tournament at the Come Try LARP World Championships of LARPing, which is going to be in Kentucky, also in August, the beginning of August. So I hope Gen Con doesn't go and see, because I'm going to Gen Con this year. And yeah, I'll be the guy doing the archery tournament this year.
It sounds like a bad Chinese food dish, but come try LARP.
Come try LARP.
Yeah,
Gen
get
Con,
in.
August
Hey.
4th to August 7th.
There you go. Yeah, August.
I might not be able to make that fun.
Wah, wah. And I'd also like to plug the Smoky Mountains, because we're going.
Yeah.
And
rubbing my
we're
face.
now May 4th in New London.
Oh,
May
we're going to
the
be talking
4th
about that
be
next
with us?
week. New London on May
yeah.
the 4th.
Oh yeah, he's got to do all the Star Wars stuff. It'll be May the 4th.
He's going to be, here's my prediction. He starts out with a couple of tunes. He does Fat next, because we know it's a costume change, right? And then he closes it out with the Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, predict all you want.
Sure. Why
No
not?
one wants to counter predict me. Come on,
No.
man. All right.
He's Weird Al. He's unpredictable.
Is he?
Yes.
A little bit.
What do you guys think about the Weird Al documentary? Well, it's kind of a biography coming out. Docudrama coming out.
I don't know.
I
I haven't
would
seen
say-
anything about it except that it's Daniel. Is it really Daniel Radcliffe? I haven't decided if
Yes.
that's a joke.
It's Daniel Radcliffe so far as I've seen. If the joke, it's brilliant because they're really running with it. Weird Al Yankovic himself said,
they have to Tom Cruise the shit out of that.
Yeah. Weird Al Yankovic said himself, finally Daniel Radcliffe will have a starring role in something he might be remembered for. So,
yeah, I mean, Weird Al's, he's not a short guy. And
if they just cast midgets and Daniel Radcliffe, that would be the greatest movie ever fucking made.
I mean, they could just do it on the set of the remake of Willow, and they'd be like all the time.
Weird Al Yankovic, you really are great.
You really are great.
You really are weird.
So, and for our fans out there who want to communicate with us, next week we are doing our top 3 picks for the most underappreciated awesome films. So if you're out there and you're like, my God, I hope they talk about Under the Rainbow, go ahead and shoot us a tweet at the Longbox guys. Let us know what your top 3 is, and we will read those off next week.
Did anyone pick Under the Rainbow? Because that is an awesome movie.
I just thought of it while you were talking about
the little people.
The little people. I was like, oh, that's just a fucking good
That's
movie.
A good movie. That's a good movie. It's a solid pick, man. Solid pick.
Solid.
So solid.
I can't tell you. So every year when I was at Emerson, they made us read a different book about diversity. And I tried so hard to get a book introduced about little people.
I know you did. I remember this. You
so hard every year. We're like, does anybody have recommendations? And I was like spitting out different books about little people. I was like, I'm all about the little people, folks. We're not doing enough to try to recruit little people. There's a group of people that we are not trying to reach, and they are little.
You never said overlooking, and I respect that.
It's fair.
You always said underappreciated or undervalued, and I'm like, please say overlooked one time just so I can jump on your ass. And you never did. But this is not a joke. For 3 years, and I recall, every time this came up, he had like 4 or 5 books in his back pocket that he would recommend for this fucking committee. And it never got passed.
Never.
Under the Rainbow would have been a good recommendation. And that'll about do it for our episode this week of the Longbox guys. Mikey, what's this podcast like to you?
It's like Drunk History, but for comics.
Josh, Gen Con this year. Is that your sector?
No, first, before that, Gatlinburg, Tennessee is my sector.
Yeah.
I'll be watching my run.
Don't let your head drop below your shoulder, my friends.
We're going to hit so many distilleries and Dollywood.
Hate you. Tommy, any words of wisdom for us?
All about the little people.
All about the little people. Don't forget what I always say. Don't just what you hate. Just promote what you love. You live longer. Thank you so much from Longbox, guys.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.